Back to school season is among us, and if you are a teenager, if you're just getting into makeup and you're looking to add some new makeup products to your kit, or if you're just starting from scratch, these are the products that I would recommend to you. Let's just go ahead and get into it. For a beginner or someone who is just pressed for time in the mornings, you don't need to go in with a primer, but I did want to recommend one, the e.l.f. Power Grip Primer. This is really going to help ensure that your makeup stays in place all day. If you are going back to school and you're going to be gone for a pretty long day, you have after school activities, or you're in college and you're walking around campus when it's hot, then this is really going to help make sure your makeup stays put and doesn't melt off your face. It does, as you can see, give you a lot of sticky grip, so it's really gonna hold your makeup in place. You can't go wrong with the e.l.f. Power Grip, but again, it's optional. Just depends on what you need and your skin preferences, your environment, all that sort of stuff. It's gonna work for pretty much all skin types, and it's really gonna help to extend the wear of your makeup. Definitely recommend this one. If you're just starting off with makeup, you're a teenager, you're in high school, you wanna start getting into makeup, but you don't wanna look like you're wearing a lot of makeup, I would recommend the CoverGirl Simply Ageless Skin Perfector. This is a super duper lightweight serum-y skin tint. It's not going to give you a lot of coverage, but it is going to help just overall even your skin tone out without looking like you're really wearing any makeup. So this is for like the no makeup girlies. If you want a bit more coverage, I have two options for you. I wanted to give you options because I feel like one foundation doesn't really fit all. There's different needs, different skin types. For a more glowy but long wearing finish, I would recommend the Maybelline Superstay 24-Hour Skin Tint. This has a luminous finish that just looks like skin. It looks like your skin but better, and it gives you a good medium coverage that wears all day long. So this is amazing. If you want to look like a porcelain doll, you want a more matte blurred finish, I would recommend the NYX Bare With Me Blur Tint. Again, this is going to give you a good high medium coverage, and it wears all day long. So can't go wrong with any of these three drugstore foundations. It just depends on the level of coverage you want, the finish you want. Today I'm going to go with the Maybelline Superstay Skin Tint. This has a dropper bottle, which is not my favorite. I usually just honestly like kind of swipe it on my skin, which is probably not the most hygienic, but it's fine. I'm gonna just spread it out gently with my fingers. And I always try to go in with light layers at first. It's easier to add more makeup than to take it away. And then I'm just gonna take my Rare Beauty foundation brush and gently press this into the skin. I'm just gonna take a tiny bit more on the back of my hand and just apply it in the places where I feel like I need a little bit more coverage. And I would recommend doing this method, applying it in the areas where you do want a little bit more coverage in a targeted manner, rather than like applying a whole nother layer of foundation all over your face, because that's just gonna make the overall look more heavy. It's gonna be a little bit more noticeable that you're wearing makeup, which is fine, who cares? But I do find this method to give you a more natural effect while still giving you the coverage that you want. So I'm actually gonna let this sit for a minute and let it sort of dry down slightly. If I go and blend it right away, I'm not gonna get the fullest coverage, but if I let it sit for a minute, then I will get a little bit more coverage, which I want in these particular areas. Moving on to concealer, I have two recommendations, and both of them are a little bit more light to medium coverage, because I feel like for a teenager, for a college student, for someone just starting off with makeup, you probably don't need a full coverage concealer on a daily basis. If you do, the e.l.f. Camo Concealer is a really great full coverage concealer, but I wanted to recommend two of my personal favorites that I really think are just gonna work for a wide variety of different people, and they're not gonna be like too glam or too sheer. They're like the perfect middle ground. My top favorite drugstore concealer is from joah. You can find joah Beauty at CVS Pharmacy. Their Perfect Complexion Eye Serum Concealer is amazing. It gives you light to medium coverage. It's not too dewy, it's not too matte, it's super smoothing under the eyes. It is so good. Literally one of my favorite concealers in my collection, drugstore high end. It's just amazing. The only downside with this concealer is the shade range is terrible. So I didn't want to just recommend this because I feel like that's not fair to people who are not going to be able to find a shade to work for them in this concealer. I really hope joah will expand their shade range in the future because it's such a great formula. But a formula and brand that does have a much better and inclusive shade range is L'Oreal, their True Match Serum Concealer with Hyaluronic Acid. This is available in a lot of different shades, in different depths, different undertones, so you should be able to find something to work for you, which is not always the case at the drugstore. drugstore. The reason why I like this concealer is, again, like I said before, medium coverage, not too dewy, not too matte, lasts all day, and it's minimal creasing. I feel like it's a really underrated concealer. It launched earlier this year, but it kind of flew under the radar. So I wanted to give it some more love today, and I'm going to wear this one today. So I'm just gonna apply like 3 little dots under my eyes, and I'm just gonna do a little tiny bit down the center of my face. You definitely don't have to do this. I feel like that foundation gave me enough coverage on these other areas, so I'm just gonna stick to this for now. And I'm gonna take my little Singe Beauty FO2 brush to blend out this concealer. I love this brush. It's like that slanted, dense, but fluffy brush. It's so comfortable under the eyes, so soft. And I love the handle. Yellow is my favorite color, if you didn't know. So you can see how quickly that just blends right into the skin. So if you're waking up early, you gotta catch the bus, you gotta make it to an 8 a.m. class, you don't have to spend 5 hours blending out your concealer. And the great thing about going for a light medium coverage concealer is that if you wanted to skip foundation and just go in with concealer, it's gonna look more natural, whereas if you go in with like a full coverage concealer and no foundation, it's gonna be really obvious where the concealer starts and stops because it's gonna be bare skin and then like bam, full coverage. More bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, ready to learn, ready to take on the world. For this drugstore starter kit back to school makeup, I wanted to give you a product in every category. Feel free to omit steps depending on your preferences, your needs, whatever floats your boat. So for bronzer, I'm going to recommend the Milani Conceal and Perfect Liquid Contour if you're looking for a liquid/cream bronzer from the drugstore. This is the best one that I've tried. Very pigmented, but easy to blend out. Sets down so it's not gonna slip and slide around, and it just wears all day long. See, super easy. Just go with a couple dots. I would recommend doing it in sections as I am, because if you apply it all over your face, it can start to dry and then it will be a little bit harder to blend. With cream and liquid products, you can apply it to the back of your hand and then dip your brush in to get a more controlled application. Sometimes applying it directly to your face can be a little bit intimidating and just harder to blend out, but in the mornings when you're trying to like get ready quickly, personally, I don't want a bunch of makeup on the back of my hand. I just find it to be messy, and then it's just an extra step I have to do later, like wiping my hand off, or else I'm like running out the door with makeup all over the place. So I like that I can apply this directly to my face and blend it out easily without worrying that it's gonna like pick up the foundation. It's really simple, easy to go, straightforward. And the finish of this is natural, not luminous, but also not like super flat matte either. These are the best liquid blushes at the drugstore. Just an amazing formula in general, and the shade range is so beautiful. These are the e.l.f. liquid camo blushes. I personally have 2 shades, Coral Crush, which is a really bright, vibrant orangey coral, and then Dusty Rose, which is a really beautiful like neutral mauve. This is the one that I'm going to wear today. It's my favorite. I don't know if you can tell on camera, it has a little bit of a luminescence to it, but it's not glittery. It's not sparkly. It does give you a little bit of glow on the cheeks, but not like overkill. And you can dot it directly on your skin as I'm doing and then just tap it in. These are very pigmented, so just be careful. Again, you can always build up. It's easier to add than it is to take away, but you can see how quickly that just blends into the skin and the beautiful flush that it gives to your cheeks. They last all day long, and because of how pigmented they are, they're gonna last you forever. You're really gonna get your money's worth out of them. Ooh, it's such a pretty color. I like to take my blush up pretty high and across the center of my face. I think this is just one of the most natural blush placements, whereas if you apply your blush a little bit higher, it's gonna give you a lifted look, but it also looks a little bit more intentional. Whereas if you kind of just apply it all over, especially in this like W shape, it's gonna look like you were just kissed by the sun or you're just naturally blushing. Kind of gives you like that I was on summer vacation, but now I'm back look. It gives you like I didn't try too hard, but I look cute sort of look. You can apply your blush wherever you want, whatever suits your face shape, but just look at that blush. It is so beautiful. Not splotchy, not patchy, gorgeous. Before we move on to powder, bronzer, and powder blush, I do want to set my face. So the best loose powder at the drugstore, in my opinion, is the e.l.f. Halo Glow Setting Powder. This is amazing. It works for all different skin types. If you have dry skin, this is still going to work for you. It sets your makeup without making you look flat matte. Just gives you like a nice, beautiful satin finish. It says Halo Glow, but don't let that scare you. It's not glittery or overly like sparkly. It just looks really, really natural on the skin. So I'm just taking a big fluffy brush and pressing that all over. If you're like, Ashley, I have a super duper oily skin, I need something really smoothing for my enlarged pores, I need something really mattifying, then I would recommend the NYX Can't Stop Won't Stop powder. This is an amazing, really smoothing, heavy duty powder, but it doesn't look heavy on the skin. It's not drying. It works for my dry skin. And I actually find this to be very comparable to the Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush Flawless Finish setting powder. That's a mouthful, but I actually prefer the NYX. This one looks a little bit too heavy on me at times, which I don't find to be the case with the NYX. So I'm just gonna use a little bit of this in my T-zone today. This is very blurring, and again, I do have dry skin, and I don't find this to emphasize dryness or make me look super crepey or anything. It's a really pretty powder. If you want a pressed powder, but you don't want something as intense or as matte as the NYX Can't Stop Won't Stop, then I would recommend the Rimmel Stay Matte, just an OG, like basic setting powder. Not heavy, it's not going to look like a bunch of powder, it's not gonna look chalky on your skin, and you can just easily throw this in your bag for touch-ups throughout the day. It's great, it's only like $3 or $4, so definitely a steal for a beginner. There are a lot of powder bronzers at the drugstore that I love. However, one of the great failings at the drugstore is their shade range, especially for bronzers. A lot of the bronzers that I love just are not offered in super deep shades, and I just didn't want to recommend something that a lot of people wouldn't be able to get their hands on or use. However, there is one bronzer that I love that does come in a pretty great shade range for the drugstore. That is the L'Oreal Infallible 24-Hour Fresh Wear Bronzer. This is a soft matte bronzer, just a really great standard matte bronzer. It is so velvety, it has such a velvety smooth consistency, and it comes in a lot of different shades in a lot of different undertones. Easy to blend, easy to build, it's gonna get the job done. And if you're just starting off with makeup and you don't know, like, do I like a luminous bronzer? Do I like a matte bronzer? I would say matte bronzers are probably the place to start. Everyone can get away with a matte bronzer, but not everyone is going to love the way a luminous bronzer look, especially if you have acne or texture. A luminous bronzer is going to emphasize that. So I just feel like a matte finish is a little bit more universal. So I'm just dusting that along the forehead, a little bit on the cheekbones and under the jaw, just pretty much everywhere where I applied the liquid bronzer. I also like to take a little bit under my lip and to slightly like contour my nose, just slightly. I like to do a little circle to give me a little bit of a button nose. And then I will take a little bit and dust it through my eyes as well. This is the easiest way to give your eyes a little bit of color, a little structure. If you don't want to do eyeshadow or anything crazy, just pop a little bit of bronzer in the crease and you're good to go. And it just makes the whole look more cohesive because it's the same color as like the stuff on the rest of your face. For powder blush, I am a really big fan of the NYX Buttermelt blushes. These are a newer launch from NYX. They've gone super viral for good reason. They are beautiful. There's lots of fun shades. They're really pigmented, so beware. And they have a really beautiful, at least the shades I have, they have a very beautiful like satin luminous finish on the skin. They're not glittery or sparkly, but they're not flat matte either, which I really enjoy about them. However, I do think that they have another finish in this formula in the blushes that I have not tried that is much more luminous, so just something to keep in mind. They do have different finishes. I think the shade range is amazing, and I think the amount of pigment is amazing because again, it's going to work for a wide variety of skin tones, and you can go in with a light hand and not like get clown cheeks right away. However, I do think that these might be a little bit tricky for a beginner. These might be a little bit hard to work with because they are so pigmented. So if you're a little bit like, I don't know if I want a super pigmented blush, then the e.l.f. primer infused blushes is the direction I would steer you. These also come in an amazing shade range, a very velvety, smooth powder that is not chalky, not patchy, and they do last all day on the cheeks. The primer infused blushes are matte, so it just depends on, again, what finish you want and the level of pigment that you want in your blush. Today I'm going to go in with the NYX Buttermelt blush in the shade For the Butta, which is a really pretty like deep mauve plum. This is very pigmented, so I'm going to be very careful here. I'm just going to go like tap, and you see you get a lot of pigment, so tap off your brush. But they do blend really easily, which is nice. Because of how pigmented these are, they're gonna last you forever. For a back to school starter kit, I was thinking that a powder highlighter was gonna be the way to go because creams and liquids just tend to be a little bit more difficult to work with, and there's not a big variety of cream and liquid highlights at the drugstore. There just isn't. I do have some really amazing powder highlights that I wanted to recommend. The most natural is the Essence Pure Nude Highlighter. This is just the most gorgeous, lit from within glow. It's a baked highlighter, so it just looks super duper natural on the skin. And if you're going to school, you might want something a little bit more subdued. So the Essence one is amazing, but if you're like me and you love a bit of a glow and you don't care if everyone sees your cheekbones pop in, Revlon Skin Lights Highlighter is gonna be where it's at, especially if you're a college student and maybe you're going to parties, there's more special occasions, special events. This one I would recommend to you because it's so gorgeous. It's impactful without looking like metallic. Can't go wrong, just depends again on what your preferences are. I wanted to mention both because I love them both equally. I'll go ahead and show both of them. I'll do one on one side and one on the other, and then we'll just mix. Essence. So the Essence, you can see, is a very natural, like lit from within glow. It's really beautiful. The Revlon is going to be that like showstopper highlight, but it's not glittery or sparkly, so you can get away with it for every day in my opinion. I'm gonna add some Revlon over here to even it out a little bit. If you find your highlight is looking a little bit disjointed, one of the things I like to do is go back over with my blush brush and just tap over the highlight because it's gonna help melt the blush and the highlight together rather than looking like two separate things on your cheek. Even for a beginner, I personally feel like lip liner is a must. My favorite drugstore lip liner formula is from LA Girl. I love their Perfect Precision lip liners. I have two shades, Cafe and Sugar and Spice. Sugar and Spice is probably my most worn. Sugar and Spice has a little bit more of a pink undertone, whereas Cafe has a little bit more of a brown leaning warm undertone. These are wooden pencils, so you can sharpen them to get really precise lines, and they are like the perfect consistency. They're not too creamy to where like you're gonna get it all over your face, but they're also not too dry to where they're gonna like tug on your lips. You can get LA Girl at CVS Pharmacy in the drugstore section of Ulta. However, if you have difficulty finding LA Girl, then I would recommend the NYX wooden lip pencils. I have 4 shades, but they come in like a million different tones, so you'll be able to find one to meet your preferences or that's going to suit your skin tone or your lip color the best. Wooden pencil, but not too dry, not too creamy. I have Natural. This one has a little bit more of a rosy undertone. This one is Nude Truffle. It's a cooler brown. Then we have Sandstorm, which is a cool brown, but slightly lighter than Nude Truffle. And then we also have London, which is just a brown with a warmer undertone. Lots of different undertones, and they do offer different depths. I'm gonna go in with my personal favorite, the Sugar and Spice lip liner from LA Girl. It's just like the perfect everyday My Lips But Better color. I also like this formula and the NYX too because they're a little bit softer. Some lip liners that are super creamy can be really pigmented and it's just gonna look more obvious. Whereas I find that these ones from LA Girl and the NYX just look really natural and feel like nothing. For lip products, you know I had to give you some options. If you are I want my lip product, my lip color to stay in place all day long, I don't want to have to fuss about it, I don't want to have to worry about it, then I would recommend to you the Superstay Vinyl Inks. These come in a million different shades. I have so many of them because I love this formula. This is like a liquid lipstick, but better. It stays in place all day long, but it's not drying on the lips. It's more of like a natural finish. It starts off a little bit more satin glossy. As the day goes on, that glossiness fades away, but the color stays intact. And if the color does start to fade off after hours and hours and hours, it's very even, very smooth. You don't get that like crusty, flaky butthole lip that liquid lipsticks can give you. My 2 personal favorite shades for like every day are Rogue 145 and Peachy 15. I'm gonna shake them because you want to shake them before you apply. I think my peachy one is getting a little older, so it's not as opaque as it used to be, but there it is right there. Just a really subtle like peachy pink. And then there's Rogue, which is more vibrant, but it's not a super hot pink. It's still pretty wearable for every day, I feel, if you're close to my skin tone. So it's really the formula that I would recommend above all else, but peachy is definitely probably my favorite shade. If you are a gloss girl, the NYX Butter Glosses are amazing if you want a more opaque color gloss. If you want something with a lot more shine and sheer color, then the Extreme Shine glosses from Essence are where it's at. Both of these are are really great, super affordable, not sticky. You are not a gloss person, but you're also not like a long wearing lipstick person, then I would recommend this tinted lip balm from Hard Candy. I think these are called Instapout lip balms. I'm not exactly sure. I'll put the exact name down below. It's got some shine. It's gonna add some hydration, a little bit of color, but you can apply it easily without a mirror. You don't have to worry about it getting all over your face. I think I will go in with this today, and this is in the shade On Again. And they're really comfortable and hydrating. If you're new to makeup, eyeshadow isn't necessarily something you need to do or need to have, but I just want to give you some options, and I feel like neutrals are probably the way to go for a beginner or for someone who's just going to be looking for something quick and easy to wear at school. This is probably my top recommendation, the Always Naked palette from Wet n Wild. These comes with a variety of brown neutral tones with different undertones. It's pretty much everything you would need for like a simple everyday makeup look. The mattes are really blendable, really pigmented, really great quality. I also am a huge fan of the CoverGirl clean color little quads that they have. These are amazing and super underrated. I think some of the best eyeshadows you can find at the drugstore. The mattes are very, very pigmented, very blendable, and the shimmers are really pretty. I just love how easy this is. You don't have to think too much about it. This one in particular is in the shade Golden Toffee, but they do have many different color stories. Today, I'm just gonna stick with like a one and done shade, I think, just for like an easy everyday look. So I'm gonna go into the Wet n Wild Always Naked palette, and this one is my favorite shade. I don't know if you can tell, it's been dipped into quite a bit. It's just the perfect neutral brown that has a slight like olivey-ness to it, which complements my skin tone really well. So I'm literally just packing that all over my lid, and I find that sometimes taking just one shade all over the eyes can help to disguise any veins or discoloration you have and just make you look overall a little bit more put together. And then once I have that on the lid, I'm just going to take a little bit and buff it through the crease just slightly. I'm going to take a smaller brush and pop some along the lower lash line as well. I also really love this matte cream color in the palette. It's really nice for just brightening up the inner corner. Super easy. Didn't take more than 5 minutes. I personally love tightlining my lashes with a little bit of eyeliner. Skip this step if you don't like wearing eyeliner on a daily basis, but I do think everyone needs at least one good eyeliner in their collection. It's just a staple product. The extreme lasting eye pencils from Essence are amazing. They're like $2 or $3 and they're really creamy and they stay in place really well. I have this brown one in But First Espresso. So I'm just gonna pop a little bit of this really tight in between the lashes on the upper waterline, and then we'll go ahead and apply some mascara. If you're looking for a great mascara from the drugstore, look no further than the e.l.f. Lash Extender Tubing Mascara. I'm wearing the brown one today, and it is just so perfect for every day. It's super natural. It separates the lashes and gives you some length while also adding some subtle volume. It is so easy to remove. It's a tubing mascara, so you can remove it easily with warm water. And because of that tubing formula, it's really long wearing. So it's just a really foolproof formula that I would recommend to everyone, and I think it's a great like beginner mascara. Quickly for the brows, my camera is dying, so I have to be a little quick. The Milani Precise Brow Pencil is a great brow pencil from the drugstore. They come in a lot of different shades. The formula is great, not too creamy, not too waxy. It stays in place perfect. Get a little fine tip. And it comes with a spoolie. If you're more of a brow pen girl, then the Lift and Snatch brow pen from NYX is what I would point you towards. It's got a really nice fine tip so you can get those little hair-like strokes, which is gonna give you a super natural look. And then for a brow gel, I'm just gonna pop this in quickly. It is the Clean Fresh Brow Gel from CoverGirl. It's just a clear brow gel, gonna keep your brows in place. And I do think that a brow gel makes a world of a difference in just shaping your brows and making them look a little bit more voluminous. So even if you're new to makeup and you're like, I don't really know if I need a brow gel, just try it out. I think you'll be surprised at how big of an impact it really makes on your face. For setting spray, I would recommend the Milani Make It Last. This is just a great long wearing lock it in place setting spray from the drugstore. I'm gonna spray some on. It has a really nice fine mist. You don't have to wear this every day, but for those days when it's gonna be super hot, maybe you have sports practice after school, maybe it's gonna be raining or whatever, and you're wearing your makeup for a long time, this is really gonna help to ensure that it stays locked in, loaded. It's not going to change the finish of your foundation, which is also great. It's just going to make it last longer. So yeah, guys, those are all of the products that I recommend to students going back to school, or for those just looking to build their makeup kit from scratch from the drugstore. I hope you guys found this video helpful. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in my next video.